Hello, Heather. How are you?
Hi, Nizam. Hi, it's so lovely to see you. It's so lovely
Yes,
to get
thank you very much.
It's so lovely to get to chat to you again.
Yes, and thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to interview.
Oh, thank you so much. I feel so honored and blessed to be invited to be a part of one of your wonderful interview series. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, friends, let me tell a bit about Heather. She has been an environmentalist, holistic healer, educator, speaker, acting locally and thinking globally for over 25 years. As a child, she suffered from anxiety, though you cannot make out seeing her because she has worked so much on herself. And she also went through depression as a result of chronic misdiagnosed illness. As a teen, she was molested sexually, which resulted in an eating disorder of several years duration. After a visit to a natural therapist, she became captivated with energetic healing and nutritional medicine, which combined with an innate desire to help others has become a lifelong love and primary mission. Since qualifying as a naturopath from a prestigious Southern School of Natural Therapies in Melbourne, she has also added classical hypnosis, wellness, life coaching, and rapid transformational therapy to her bow. Heather also presents regularly to peers and various community groups, has volunteered with the long-term unemployed, worked with special needs clients and niches in coaching, finance executive, quit smoking, weight loss, disorder eating. Did you spare anything, Heather? Addictions, depression. She is an internationally best-selling co-author with the Elevate Health series, keeping abreast. Love is the answer to cancer, and is currently writing her first novel, Sex and Sensibility. Stay tuned. So that's Heather for us. So let us know more about Heather and her journey. So, how did you get into this personal development stuff?
Good question. I love that question. So, Nizam, I might give you my little quick breakdown about trauma.
Yeah, please.
Actually, I might give you two breakdowns. You know, I love my infographics.
Yes.
So I might break down my light bulb moment, which is literally my light bulb moment first. I'll just grab it for you. So, as you know, reality is a really subjective experience. And as you put it so brilliant before, working with men and with women, men tend to think and need help in making that gap to feeling, and women tend to feel and may need help bridging that gap to feeling. So here's the thing, it's like if we grow up in our own little bubble and someone's bubble looks like that, and somebody else's bubble of reality, their existence looks like that, or it might look like trying to do a bad heart shape there. So if you've had that experience, try to explain this experience to someone, especially working through this part, it can be really, really hard. Hence, when I really got it, and when I really got the difference between, because I'd been to having, suffered trauma being born.
So
No, I
let
had
us
a really,
show the audience
I'll show
also
it to you
what you are
again.
talking about. No, I started sharing as well. There you go.
Oh, did you? Oh, you're so good.
Yes,
Great. There we are.
that
Okay,
makes
so
the work easier for you to explain. Yeah.
yep. Okay, so anytime we have a limiting belief, I had my light bulb moment of describing it as it's like a broken light bulb. Now, if you go and see a talk therapist, which I did, I saw my first psychologist. My mother took me when I was 3.5. I was such a mixed up little kid. Then I saw a school counsellor when I was 13 after my duodenal ulcer, because I was literally eating away at myself. Finally diagnosed when I was 13 after years of misdiagnosis. And then I saw a psychologist when I was about 30. And what happened was, seeing a talk therapist, I was really, really, really good at discussing my broken 25-watt light bulb. I call it rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic, or identifying deck chairs on the Titanic. After 18 months of discussing my problems with a psychologist, I was really good at describing my problems.
Okay.
It didn't change anything. So what I realized was, especially with the work that we're able to do as hypnotherapists, and now I can do it really, really quickly because I've just gotten, more skilled at it, especially with the rapid transformational therapy.
Mm-hmm.
So hang on a second, go back to the other one. Go back to that one.
Sorry.
Go back to this one first. No, it's okay. It's great. It's great. It's a good lead in. Especially as that one's the Titanic. So if we look
yeah, please.
Look at you're sharing, aren't you? You're sharing.
Yes.
So what do we want to do with a broken light bulb? What do we want to do with a broken light bulb? We want to unscrew it, don't we? Rather than discussing while we sit in the dark, how dark it is, how long it's been dark for, and how it came to be dark, what do we want to do? We want to unscrew it. Now, we can do that really easily during trance, when we're in that dissociated state, when we're in that light, dreamy state. And as I say to clients, we don't need to relive the trauma. We just want to go back and review it. We want to find out what belief we took on, not trying to process and understand it, make sense of it through this part of the mind. We can't. We've got to go to this part where the projection is coming from. That's where the DVD is being played. And then what do we want to do? When we've easily unscrewed it, psychologically reversed it, we want to screw in our bright, shiny, 100-watt, new desired reality, desired self.
Okay.
First of all, we have to get clear about what it is, what it looks like, what it feels like. And then we want to screw that in. And we do that easily in trance, making the transformation possible.
Wow. Wonderful.
So that's a really great light bulb moment that I had about describing what I do, making it really simple, and describing what I do as opposed to, psychology, counseling, talking endlessly. Somebody a few years ago said to me, we were having a discussion about whether they would come to see me or not, and they didn't. They chose not to. She said, "I'll have you know, I've been talking to my drug and alcohol counsellor for 17 years.
Oh my God.
And I thought, good luck with that, because you'll probably be talking to them for the next 17 years, without any great shifts. If you've been doing that the funny thing was, she was a fellow practitioner, not a hypnotherapist, and not a natural therapist of kinds. And so I just found it very interesting that she still had her addictions fully intact. And of course, she was so stuck in her 25-watt broken reality. That's where she wanted to stay. She was guarding the trauma. So Nizam, you can take down that infographic, or you can leave it up if you like. We've got our little talking heads here. Everybody can see our little talking potato heads here.
So that's how you got into the personal development. You are saying that you had your light bulb moment.
Well, actually, so that actually came much later. That was a few years ago that I had that moment. But it summed up what I'd been trying, this journey, this landscape that I'd been exploring all these years, doing different natural therapies. So Nizam, as a Melbourne, Fitzroy, Southern School natural therapies graduate, 90s, angel cards, having my chakras cleansed, buying hundreds of crystals, putting them in my bra, putting them in my pocket, all those kind of things. Now, as I say to clients and friends, those things are fabulous. Meditating, doing full moon meditations, those things are really good if you want to be good at focusing on a large luminous object in the sky. Again, is it going to change your reality here? deeply, quickly, probably not. It's a different kind of therapy that I do. Buying a crystal, it's a beautiful experience. It's like having, it's like my beautiful bunch of roses that I have behind me and my beautiful heart painting that I have behind me. Again, is it going to upscale my resistance? Do I love looking at them? Do I get pleasure from looking at them? I do. Is it going to change that journey quickly? Making that change quickly compared to seeing a counsellor for 17 years or 3 years or seeing a psychologist for 18 months like I did, and I was committed to that therapy? Probably not. And so here's another great metaphor. This is how I talk about trauma, and so what happened was I'll quickly unpack my story. Okay. So I wasn't a happy baby. Because of mum's very special blood type, AB negative, she set up maternal antibodies to my positive blood type.
Okay.
So I had to come out quickly, 2 weeks earlier than I should have. So I had to be induced. That's not very pleasant for a baby, getting pushed out. I needed a full blood transfusion because of mum's blood fighting mine. So I had an immediate full blood transfusion. My dad always relates when he makes a speech at a birthday how he can still hear the vacuum compression sort of going on. Then I got placed into a humidity crib in ICU for 2 weeks. Okay. And in those days, you didn't hold your babies and you didn't feed your babies. That was done by nurses. So mum was looking at me through the glass, which is very distressful to her. She didn't get to hold me for 2 weeks. I got evacuated out of my mother's womb where I'd been listening to her heartbeat for 9 months. And I got stuck behind a glass in a crib with lots of, monitors and things on me. So very, very traumatic, as well as all the full cleanup. So now they now realize, doctors and the medical profession now realize that being covered in the mother's goop that comes, through the birth canal is really important for the baby's biome, and that, our garden inside. And plus, of course, we get fed things like probiotics through the breast milk when we're being breastfed. And because of the shock that mum went through and the distress that mum went through being separated from me, she lost her breast milk, so I wasn't breastfed. So I was cow's milk fed, formula. And that didn't work for me. So it probably set up this problem with my gut, where I then developed the bad bacteria, which is Helicobacter bacter, which set me up for an ulcer. Okay. So through my childhood, I had an ulcer. I had a stomach ulcer, a duodenal ulcer, but it wasn't diagnosed because I'm probably the youngest person in Australia, maybe the world, ever to be diagnosed with a duodenal ulcer. And I obviously had it right through my childhood. So I was suffering pain, immense pain. So that set up kind of a strange belief as a child because we'd gone to church. So I decided that God must hate me if I was in this much pain and having this much gastric discomfort, as well as being on dairy products, which I shouldn't have been. So, I had a lot of discomfort as a child. Then, so as part of that trauma, and this, Nizam, we decide that we take on a belief. I took part of those core beliefs that I took, and aside from I mustn't be enough, eating away at myself, biting my nails, wetting the bed, being traumatized, being anxious, being distressed, being depressed, hypervigilant, really PTSD, as a child. So therefore I decided I had to be brilliant to feel safe, to make my world safe. I had to be brilliant. I had to be perfect because then I couldn't be criticized, like no lofty ideals there for a 3.5-year-old. I was different. So, I was excluded. I had to try to be like other people, brilliant, perfect, and hypervigilant. And so then mum had a big operation when I was 5 years old and had a big nervous breakdown. She went to bed for 2 years. So I became the hypervigilant carer, sick child trying to cheer up mummy. But when I was 15, a man that I'd babysat his child for a couple of years, he tried to molest me one night.
Oh.
So of course I took that on as being my fault, and terribly, I was quite outgoing in some ways, but I was quite shy in others. So, that affected me terribly, full of shame, full of guilt. So then I stopped eating, which was another thing. Of course, we know as practitioners, it's part of having that disordered eating of anorexia and trying to starve yourself. I was trying to stop myself becoming more womanly. I was trying to stop myself growing up, literally. And that was my addiction. We're all addicts. We're all addicts about everything. Some people have addictions which are more socially acceptable than others. Mine was controlling what I ate all the time. I was pretty 3 years of anorexia. I was pretty confused by the time I was 18 and trying to finish my last year of high school, trying to pretty much live on an orange a day. So I was pretty underweight.
That's it, nothing else.
That's it. And I was getting kookier. My broken light bulb was getting pretty kooky by that stage. So I was lucky enough, I'd done dental nursing through high school, and then I decided to be an oral hygienist. So that was the first thing I studied. Then I decided to I was unhappy and I decided, stuff it, I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to follow my dream of becoming a natural therapist, a naturopath. Lucky enough to study at the Southern School, which is a really amazing natural therapies college here in Melbourne, not too far away. And but product of the 90s. So yes, we studied health science and nutrition. Nutrition in those days were high carb diets, high carbohydrate diets, low fat diets of the 90s, which are a write-off health-wise. Terrible, terrible. I was such a carb crawler. I was eating my toast and my pasta and, things, and I was constantly hungry and overweight, brain fog and, digestion and, the whole crazy thing. Now, thanks to the quantum science, nutritional science available now, we know that all that stuff is, completely, terribly wrong way go back. And then the other adventure on the roller coaster that God put me through was in 99, I was in Istanbul during my travel gap year, and I was in the massive earthquake and ate contaminated food the next day because all the power had gone off, and we were very, very lucky where we were. We were far enough away from the epicenter of the earthquake that our apartment didn't collapse in the middle of the night. But I got a really nasty tummy bug. So then I went through some kind of parasite. So then I went through 2 years. I didn't have the understanding of gut healing that I have now. We didn't have the correct kind of probiotics that we have now. So I took lots of antibiotics, which again shredded my already fragile digestive system. So Nizam, this is another learning curve. Heal, physician, as Hippocrates said, physician, heal thyself. So that was a whole other understanding. First of all, getting my gut right physically, and then, of course, as we can as hypnotherapists, going into the gut-brain axis and telling it to upscale. Yes, I've been in a very interesting journey. I'm really hoping that they are the curveballs that God sends me. They're the major curve. Hopefully I've learned to bat my major curveballs this lifetime. So, yeah.
Been a tough journey, for sure.
Yeah, it's been an interesting one. So, because so when I was a child, I was so super wired for trauma. And Nizam, I don't know if you're familiar with the magnificent Dr. Gabor Mate.
Yeah.
And his work I thought you would be, when the body says no. So, of course, I really think because of my upbringing, because of my entrance to this world, I think I was one of those babies that was wired with low serotonin or dopamine. So I was looking for dopamine hits. One of my big dopamine hits was being complicated, always, getting first in the class and all those things. And the problem was having a mega memory. The problem was that over time, being such a perfectionist, if I wasn't instantly good at something, I'd give it up.
Okay.
Because I couldn't bear that mountain of failure, and I couldn't bear criticism. I couldn't take on I've forgotten what the word is, but you know what I mean? It's not criticism. It's like, even like helpful suggestion, everything came to me as through this negative lens, where I was being criticized and attacked. So of course, that limits us, that makes us small. When you can't enjoy, and of course, being the perfectionist child, I was always had to color in the lines. I couldn't be, creative. I couldn't make a mess. I couldn't be creative. So of course it gets limiting.
Yes.
I'll show you one of my other little things which I show to clients, which is my great breakdown of trauma. So like that client that I mentioned before, who the person I mentioned before who saw her drug and alcohol counsellor for 17 years.
17 years.
When I see clients and they've been seeing, their counsellor or their psychologist for years and years and years, it's like they've still got their gas bottle, they've still got their trauma, but, they've painted pretty flowers on it. And it's like saying, here's my trauma, and, and we'll see people, or it's like saying, oh, there's my trauma, I can push it down because I'm sticking some needle in my arm, but I've still got my trauma. Or you'll see people who are guarding their trauma. I can't enjoy a healthy relationship with a man because I nearly got molested. Yeah, so they're like, because I can't be a successful healer. I can't talk because I'm the girl that was too shy to speak in public. Remember? When we identify it and we psychologically reverse the trauma, we're unscrewing our gas bottle gently and we're letting the gas out. And then again, we can say, oh, why am I carrying that thing around with me? It's just something that I can put away and I can put down and I can leave behind while I step into my beautiful. And what we do is immensely powerful because we are deleting the program and then we're rewiring, recoding, rewriting. And we don't need to, I say to clients, look, especially if they're going to unpack something very, 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 very stressful, sexual, a sexual trauma or, goodness. One of my amazing clients I'm working with recently, he came to see me for drinking too much alcohol recently. And when we unpacked it, but he knew what was going on. He'd been involved in an accident with a woman who was drunk driving a car. Because he was driving a truck, her child died in the back seat, her infant, and he saw it. Her child was decapitated. So he's been having nightmares and carrying that around with him. And plus he was in another accident where it was in that accident, his friend had got out of the truck to fix down the ropes. And his friend, he wasn't killed, but he was terribly, dismembered in this accident. And so he's been suppressing. He's been having he said 2 or 3 times a week, I either have a nightmare about the baby or I have a nightmare about my friend being hit by this car and suffering really terrible injury. He's okay, but he's stuck in those traumas of keeping his friend alive before paramedics arrived. Luckily, he'd done first aid, so he did keep his friend alive. But So, of course, taking the emotional loading off those memories, emptying the gas so that the event happened. And I can hypnotize, we know we can hypnotize people so that they forget completely, but we don't need to. We want to reframe it. And his friend's actually okay. It's amazing. His friend was terribly injured at the time, but, thanks to life-saving medicine, he's actually not bad, and he's still alive. He's doing well. But the victim, he's frozen in the PTSD. He's frozen in that memory. So we want to change that, which we will gently over several sessions.
Wonderful. Amazing job, isn't it? The role of a hypnotherapist is amazing.
We're so blessed. But also there's my infographics that I use help to explain to people. We can talk about that one if you like, Nizam, if you'd like to bring up the Titanic.
Okay.
So before I do trance with clients, I explain what we're doing with the mind so that they're not afraid to go into trance and show me their secrets. So, so here we have our ship. You can see our little ship then is and that's made of our suppositions.
Here is the ship, yeah.
There's our ship. It's made of our suppositions, habits, impulses, programming, and age, sex, culture. So your reality, consciousness of reality and your viewpoint of the world is going to be different than mine. We're different ages, different sexes, different cultural upbringings, different exposure to quite different things. Now, here's our conscious mind. Here's the tip of the iceberg that we can see, that people, will identify with, right? Now, that's our neocortex. That's our neo-conscious mind, the new part of the mind. But however, we're actually operating from that 70%, which is below the conscious mind water level. That's our reptilian mind. So the where that comes into play, aside from, controlling things like our heart rate and our heart rate and our blood pressure, and kind of actually to a point, because of course we can hypnotize people and unpack them emotionally and successfully reduce their blood pressure. But things like, saliva. I don't need to instruct my tongue consciously to push my food around my mouth. It's being run on that program. And where that's so important and where it comes into play is that, for example, with PTSD, we see something which reminds us of that thing that happened. And then our reptilian mind comes into play, where it may protect us or it may punish us. We run a protective survival program, but what you and I, Nizam, we know when we see clients with addictions, whether it be OCD or PTSD or eating disorders or whatever, or smoking, whatever it is, they're, trying to mask whatever it is that they're doing. They're trying to mask that thing that comes into play. But what's really interesting, because with my background in nutrition and also my understanding of physiology, pathology, and anatomy, I also go in and do something a bit specialized, which is I talk to the body parts. Mm-hmm. So I'll talk to a person's pancreas while they're in trance to find out what their sweetness of life issue, why they have this autoimmune disorder where the body is attacking itself to protect, to keep us small in some way, or to punish us to keep us small in some way. It's actually two sides of the same coin, protect or punish. Yes. It's fascinating. I was having a chat to a lady's thyroid. She'd been shut down by her bullying father at the age of 10. So she unpacked her story. And it was amazing. She was saying, her thyroid, throat chakra is communication, expression. So we were really easily able to have a chat to her thyroid. Now, look, she may need to be on low thyroid medication for the rest of her life. We may not make a big change there. However, she really found her voice. Her father's been dead for 20 years. But in her transformation, we were talking about how she can speak up for herself and use her voice. You know, she's a beautiful, amazing mother, daughter, sister, friend, and it's time for her to be empowered and powerful. So we did a massive confidence upgrade around throat chakra in her transformation that day that I recorded for her, so she can keep playing it. And we
Isn't
also,
it amazing, Heather, that you first psychoeducate through your infographics, then develop their awareness, and then do your work?
Well, because it means that especially when people are afraid of going into trance and what they might say or what it might be like, they don't realize I'm just putting them into a little relaxed state to bypass this bit. So we can have a chat to this bit and ask how it's making sense of what's going on in the body. So what it means is we're all on board with the same program. You know, we're all on board with the same objective. Then they run it, they trust me. I know their super conscious mind where we're going to do this amazing healing, that's 70% that we're going to upgrade. I know that trusts me. So they go into trance easily. They don't fight it. You know, as I explained to them, look, the state we're going to, it's just like you're having a lovely doze in the sun and you know you're not asleep, but you don't want to wake up and open your eyes easily. You're just in that lovely, relaxed, dreamy state. And gee, you know, people go into their organs or their disease or their part that's rebelling, you know, their depression, you know, they've got a black cloud of depression inside. And it's called sadness or it's called suffering. And we ask, what role does it play? What meaning does it have? Oh, it's to protect the person, keeping them small.
Okay.
And because this is something which unconscious mind, and as I say to them, we're most likely going to go and have a chat today to a part that was formed when you were still afraid of the dark. It's part of how your inner child is expressing itself that's afraid. And when it talks to you as a 2-year-old or a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old. And we're going to introduce them to the aware parent. And the aware parent, you know, is going to hold hands with the inner child and show them that they're now safe, that the aware parent is always there to keep the inner child safe, that the inner child can now be expressed safely, beautifully, safely.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. It's a really great way to break it down. You know, it stops people thinking that trance is this crazy, you know, strange thing. It's like, darling, we're in trance all the time, you know, twice a day as we slide off to sleep and as we wake up. Hypnotherapy is using that amazing elastic brain, you know, neoplastic brain state that we have, the mind state, to do something therapeutic. That's all.
How did you get this thought that you should use these infographics in your work? Do you design by yourself? Like how all? Please tell me the background.
But darling, you've probably seen that before. You know, that's a common breakdown of the and by the way, where this becomes important is that midbrain 20%, which I say is still under the waterline. It's still unconscious, because especially with women, and having a chat about brain sex, women tend not to have emotions. We are our emotions. And I know you want me to unpack this for you. And I'll do that really quickly. I'm not sure if I sent you this infographic. I'll just remember what's on it. Did I send you the beliefs, values, and brain sex infographic?
One sec.
I can't remember. If I didn't, it doesn't matter. I'll just read off the important bit, which is this bit down the bottom, which is the Venus and Mars bit. No, that's okay. No. I'll just explain it to you. Okay, so we're all made female. At 6 weeks in utero, we either get a shot of testosterone or we don't. If we get a shot of testosterone, you differentiate. We get a beautiful specimen like Nizam growing into a beautiful man. And what that means is, Nizam, is that the brain is compartmentalized. It's an effect of testosterone. And then again, around about 12, when you get your second hit of testosterone, through adolescence, when you start growing hair, all over and all those sorts of things, that means that girls are starting to get their warmth of estrogen, which is making our things grow. And while girls are starting most likely to think about being attracted to the opposite sex, or maybe having babies and, maybe having a journey into motherhood, boys are doing things like, and so girls will excel at school early on. We're much more committed to reading and writing and getting things right, while boys are out there kicking, go, look at me, I can kick the ball, I can hit the ball, or kick the ball further than anyone else. When the boys get their second hit of testosterone, the guy's spatial awareness increases. Guys start reverse engineering rockets to the moon, while we are thinking about more so home, babies. Am I tall enough? Am I short enough? Are my boobs big enough? Are they smaller? All that kind of stuff. We get really, fixated around this. Now, in that interplay of hormones, twice a month, we get oppositional. You guys, you're so lucky. You've got no idea. You just get testosterone. And we get periods, pregnancies, cats, dogs, couches, all that stuff, as well as this twice a month hormonal confusion. Now, the big deal with that, when I explain this to women, especially when I'm working with my beautiful clients and they're here to see me with, anxiety, depression, overwhelm, and or, an eating disorder, underweight or overweight or whatever it is, or compulsive eating or binge eating, the big deal is that it's messy in there because of the hormonal mess up, especially if they're having bad periods and low progesterone or whatever. But if they've been traumatized, it's a write-off. Men, oppositionally, of course, we do see men that are very traumatized as well. However, men with their testosterone programming, they can still go out, succeed academically, get a great job, make good money, and still be successful. And I'm not saying, and it's terrible, because there are a lot of successful but very deeply depressed guys out there, which is a great shame. However, what I find is girls will write themselves off. They barely function, and that's a really big difference between men and women. That women can be depressed, gain a lot of weight, have an injury or whatever, which is probably, again, it's probably subconscious mind protecting them in some way, and write themselves off. Fat, really frumpy, and really financially stuffed up. So that makes them under-resourced. It's an extra kind of hurdle for women, making them really under-resourced and not being able to seek help.
Okay. So therapists need to be aware, therapists or coaches, anyone who are working with men and women should be aware how, female think or like how women think and men think. Having this awareness will help a lot, right, Heather? Well, what do you say about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And look, even when I'm really, really lucky, Nizam, because I worked for several years with mostly male executives.
Okay.
Very high achieving male executives. And, we might work, I might be working with one executive to get him off smoking. Another executive might be in a team, might be debrief, just like stress debriefing. Another executive might be, eating excessively, especially, too many business lunches, so we'd be dealing with weight loss and stress and things like that. And then invariably they would come around to telling me their story. When we had trust, they might be making, like $500,000 a year or something.
Oh my God.
But their home life wasn't great, and they'd lost that connection. They were the guy that went to a job that they may not necessarily like that much, but it put everybody through private school and, put the roof over their head and, the wife gets a Mercedes and all that stuff. But they weren't very happy inside. And again, they'd lost that connection with their wife.
Okay.
And for them, understanding that hormonal swing that women were going through and how to approach women from a brain sex point of view, they found it immensely valuable.
Wow. And why do men have problem in accessing their emotions, Heather? What do you say?
Well, because again, it comes down to darling, you might want to put this in the chat screen, or perhaps I will. There is a fabulous YouTube clip. Can we put it, Nizam, can you put it in comments, or can I bring up the comments thing and I'll write this down?
You have.
I can do it, can't I? I hit chat.
Yeah.
I'll write it down. It's a YouTube clip. Oops. And it's by, it's called, I'm on the spot now. Don't worry. It's floating around there in superconscious mind. It'll come to me. It's called, gosh, I talk about this all the time. It'll come to me by the end. Probably won't now. If it does, we'll post it on that. When you post the thing, I'll post it to you.
Okay, definitely in YouTube description.
The nothing box. It's the nothing box, and his name is he's something like Pastor Mark, and he's running the most. He's an American pastor. I think I hit enter.
Okay.
He's
you
running.
Want me to show this video right now to this, or shall I mention that in the YouTube description? You have got anything to explain from that video?
Yeah, I'll just explain it to you. He illustrates so beautifully about how men have like the nothing box.
Okay.
Where you're resting on a Saturday afternoon and you're thinking about nothing, and your wife says, "What are you thinking about?" And he thinks, "Oh, nothing." And of course the woman is, we're trying to make this. I was like this once upon a time. I'm trying to make the sun come up and go down, and I don't have kids this time. You can see why, obviously, it'd be a disaster. But we're trying to run and manage everything.
Yes. I watched that video.
Yeah. And men are just like nothing. I'm thinking about nothing. And of course, so this is another thing about brain sex. Women have the 6-lane super highway when it comes to emotions and feelings. And of course, we're like emotional spaghetti. It's all going off all the time. A man has his compartmentalized, he's got his relationship box. And this is why, a man goes through a relationship breakdown. He still goes to work. And he still functions, and he does, because he can park it. Whereas a woman is, I can't get out of bed, I'm falling apart, and and it's that time of the month, I've got my period, and the dog's died or whatever. I can't function. He's got his nothing box. So this is the thing about explaining, especially when I'm working with really deeply neurotic clients, which I once was. I thought, Nizam, for probably still more than half of my life, I thought that having a bad feeling and feeling really bad about it was really important, and it was important globally. It's like, if I'm depressed, the whole world's depressed, right? Because I'm really depressed. So therefore, everything has to be depressed. At one stage, I couldn't imagine that everybody wasn't feeling everything as deeply as I felt it. And I see this with women coaches all the time, not understanding emotion. They think that because you have I've got a really close friend of mine, I love her to bits, but she's hyper emotional, and she thinks because she feels so strongly about something, it's really important. It's like, it's not, darling, it's just a feeling that you're having. Next minute, you'll have another feeling. And it doesn't have to be, I'm not saying by any means suppress it. However, what we want to do is, using our lovely iceberg versus Titanic, we want to realize it's midbrain fluff. And the reason why this is important, actually, Nizam, you might want to bring this up on the screen again. I'll explain it. The reason why this is really important is that
yeah, there you go. Yes.
Yep, there we are. So the reason why it's really important is that, say, for example, I wake up and now I'm having my once a year grumpy day. That's pretty much it for me. I've gotten so good at processing emotions. And what that means is, if I'm having my once a year grumpy day, maybe it's that time of the month. And this is where I'm at odds with probably about 90% of coaches who are in that positively reframe everything. No. Oh, Nizam, thank you, because you asked me specifically to talk about this, about cycling dark moon. This is what I mean by it. And again, people are obsessed. It's like we're going to be in full moon all the time. We're going to positively reframe everything, go. It's like the sun always rises. And it's like, no. Women, we are cyclical beings. We have that cyclical swing of emotions. We are such lunatics, moon-driven lunatics, literally, which is why we should have a 28-day cycle. If we weren't exposed to all these batteries and electricity, we should be ovulating with the full moon, and we should all be getting our period with dark moon. That's how lunar-driven we are, lunar cyclically we are. Now we're all out of balance, taking, the oral contraceptive pill, being exposed to car batteries and fridge batteries and TV, all that Wi-Fi interferes with our cycle. So the point is, when I wake up and I'm having that grumpy day, the first thing I want to figure out is my bad feeling simply coming from this part of my mind, or is it coming from this part? If it's coming from that unconscious part, because say it's that time of the month for me, I know that I just want to be kind to myself, not push myself too hard. If I'm having a seriously bad day, like a bad, super bad hair day, I just want to be nice to myself. I don't want to make any big decisions, especially big decisions about money. Now, once upon a time when I was under-resourced, depressed, flaky, all that stuff, having amazingly good at having, the gold medal Olympic winner, and having a bad feeling really amazingly bad about it, I would have probably hoovered a whole lot of chocolate. I've got one of my props here. I would have binged watched the movie Notting Hill with my favourite actress Julia Roberts and Hugh Grant. And I wouldn't have taken great action about whatever the actual problem was. I just would have felt really bad about it. I would have hoovered chocolate, distracted myself with movies, and I was also a really good. I also had a bit of a spending addiction, which was one of the great super skills my beloved mother passed on to me. Spending money that, to buy something that I probably didn't need and I probably wouldn't like when I wasn't in that badly resourced state. I say to clients, it's like being down in the valley. You're down in the valley. Mm-hmm. So what I do when I'm having my grumpy day is I use it to cyclically cleanse, as well as things like, once upon a time I would have eaten a whole lot of chocolate, and eaten a whole lot of chocolate biscuits and ice cream. Now I'll probably still have one of my green shakes, with spirulina and hemp protein and coconut milk and avocado in it, that sort of thing. And I'll go to the gym or I'll have a walk.
Okay.
And I will try to emotionally process, try to figure out, am I having that grumpy day because it's something that's bubbling up from my unconscious mind? Or is it a problem like, I forgot to pay my gas bill. Actually, I can't now because it gets directly debited, but you know what I mean. Did I not address that thing? I got that parking fine. Damn it, I haven't paid it. I'm going to, instead of getting the discount on it, I'm going to have to pay the whole thing. Damn it. Do you know what I mean? So I want to figure out, have I got a little problem in here that needs to be solved, or have I got a bigger problem here, or is it simply that I'm in a hormonal low? And if I'm in an under-resourced state, it's like, I will say to my partner, especially if he says, darling, I need to talk to you about bloody blah, I will say, not now. And I'm having my grumpy day, I will say to family and friends, stay away from me.
Okay.
I will work out whatever it is that I'm upset about. If it involves you, I'll let you know in good time, in 25 words or less. First of all, I want to just process the emotions. I don't want to get into a conversation with somebody when my gas bottle is full, especially not with my partner, because I'm likely to say the wrong thing. Now, Nizam, and you may have close experience of this. You may have direct experience of this with the women in your life. The problem is that when women are in that state, we often think that we are entitled to say whatever we like. Verbal vomit on people. And that's when the really nasty things, the catty, that excess gas gets let out of the gas bottle, and women say things that in the heat of the moment that they may not necessarily mean a day later, and it can be really damaging to their relationships, especially to their male-female relationships, in their life, where they verbally vomit, and go off and say terrible things. So I don't know if you've been a direct recipient of that, but if you have, it's unpleasant. And then when the women are out of it, it's a bit like they're unconscious and they're like, what's wrong? I wouldn't have said that to you, or even if, I didn't mean it. So it's part of my women's coaching, in coaching women how to deal with those situations. Okay. And then when they're out of it, when they're out of that intense emotional spaghetti brain feeling state, how then to communicate with your man or your beloved, people in your life, so you don't, do some major damage in your relationship.
Okay.
And being a woman, this is another thing about women is because we think and we overthink and we feel so much, we generally tend to think that we're right. And all we have is an opinion. Okay.
You mean men have the throughout their moods don't fluctuate in any period of the month. It's just that, and women are having all this cycle of emotions. You're saying, Heather?
Much less. Okay. Much less because it's also a function of testosterone. Testosterone tends to be, of course, we know that men can be traumatized, but testosterone tends to be a move toward hormone. So that, a goal-driven hormone. I want the red shiny sports car, and so I move towards getting the red shiny sports car. Women tend to be, and it's a function of estrogen, move away from. I don't want to be poor. And again, and that's where that play into the light bulb takes place. Nizam, if you would like to
sure,
bring up the other infographic of the light bulb.
Are you able to see it?
Pardon?
Are you able to see that infographic?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I can. So this is another reason why women are so busy hanging on to the broken light bulb. Men want to run, at the 100-watt bright, shiny future, whereas women are hanging on to this, and it's part of that brain sexing where you'll say to women, you'll ask a woman, they'll say something like, actually, this is a classic thing when I'm date coaching, okay, so you don't want to be with a man like your father, or you don't want to be with another alcoholic, or you don't want to be with somebody who's bad with money because, your last husband was terrible with money and, or whatever. And I'll say, well, what do you want? And they'll say, I don't know. And of course, and this is where eliciting what their beautiful 100-watt bright shiny light bulb is all about. And it takes time. Women will complain endlessly about their broken 25-watt light bulb while sitting in the dark. Well, what do you want? Oh, I don't know. So then that's another journey about helping women to get clearer about what they want and then taking the steps toward that journey.
Okay, wonderful. And I have one more question, Heather.
Yeah.
Uh, for the therapists and coaches who want to know more about this brain sex and how to understand men, how to understand women, and how to
Yeah.
coach them, how to help them using in your infographics, do you offer them any personalized coaching sessions or any sort of trainings who want to
Yeah, Nizam.
expand their services or with
Yeah.
more skill set? Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I actually, because I've become a bit of a master healer,
Mhm.
I often end up coaching and, doing therapeutic work with other coaches and hypnotherapists.
Okay.
Because, and actually, I think it's just very, very recently.
Mhm.
This is something which I think it's taken a few months to kind of download into my life.
Mhm.
As I say to my friends, look, I've spent the first 50 years figuring out my shit. I'm going to spend the next 50 years just, enjoying life. And I think actually finally,
Okay.
and I think it's just, of course, it's that cumulative process. My life is really quite healthy. I spend time with healthy, beautiful people generally. I facilitate clients, really quickly on their healing journeys, because we know what we're trying to do. We're going to upgrade. It's like these are two things which I show to clients all the time.
Right.
It's like, especially for women. I've worked with women and they've had such grim upbringings that this is the thing. They're playing the Titanic movie, which I know a lot of the viewers to this will relate to. A lot of us have seen Titanic. So they're playing Titanic. Of course, if they're playing that in their DVD, in their mind, first of all, we need to eject that, and then we need to figure out what their version of Notting Hill, their lovely love story or happiness, story. And then we've got to install that. So what's happened very, very recently for me is I think I've actually finally healed all my childhood trauma. I don't think I'm operating from not enough anymore and having to be perfect and brilliant and I'm different. And I think I'm actually just now. It's almost like I'm getting ready to figure out who I want to be when I grow up, because I'm not operating from a need to please people on that level anymore. It's like I can actually be just really essentially happy in myself. I've got pretty happy, healthy life habits now. I meditate regularly. I exercise regularly. I have a pretty schmick, amazing diet. I've got beautiful friends and colleagues, and, I've got an amazing, gorgeous, including Unisarm, this beautiful support net. I'm always laughing at all the beautiful things you post all the time in the coaches group we're in, and on your personal page. You know what I mean? It's like, it's really beautiful. And life is pretty healthy and happier. And look, it still means I can't remember if you've commented personally, but like I've actually just been through an incident for 6 months where I've been the victim of a stalker and being harassed by someone who used to live nearby. And the great thing is, my friends were horrified when I started posting about it and saying, oh, my goodness, Het, you poor thing, and blah, blah. And actually, it's like, for me, I've actually been okay.
Yes.
I've managed it. It's part of that philosophy. It's not the worst thing that's ever happened to me. It's a curveball to be hit. And again, I took appropriate action.
Wonderful.
I wrote a report. I've been in touch with the police, all those sorts of things. I didn't spend a lot of time dwelling on it, or why has this happened to me? It's just like, hey, I think in terms of it like this, Nizam, it's like I'm leading this really big life. When you go up and down on the roller coaster goes up and down compared to going around on the merry-go-round. And the merry-go-round is very safe. And once upon a time, I loved the merry-go-round. Now I'm doing an increasingly bigger, roller coaster. And so there's more adventures, there's more challenges to be met. There's more adventures to be had. And with what I've been through, God has equipped me, and I've kept you know, I became a naturopath and I didn't get the answers that I sought to healing myself. I studied emotional freedom technique, which you and I really love, you know, and teaching clients tapping to let that, again, that excess energy, you know, out of their gas field. We know that is an amazing, amazing skill, but it wasn't enough. And then classical hypnosis wasn't enough, and life coaching wasn't enough, and health coaching wasn't enough. And I kept digging and I kept working, and NLP, you know, I explained again, it's part of the reason why NLP isn't that effective for women, because of that complication in this. Of course, now it's like I've got my toolbox. EFT is a fantastic screwdriver, and NLP is a fantastic hammer. But now, you know, with the transformational healing that I do, you know, this really turbo kind of, you know, form of hypnosis, that's my sledgehammer. We can go in, we can really smash when the client's ready. You know, when we've emotionally decompressed them a bit with tapping, they know exactly down to neuroscience how the mind operates now. And then they feel safe. And then we can go in and crack open that old broken story that doesn't work for them anymore in a sessional 3, and then give them that fabulous upgrade. It's great. Yes. Really, I'm so blessed. I'm so blessed.
You're doing amazing job, and it was wonderful knowing your story.
Thank you.
And your innovative way of using infographics, unpack them, educate. So thank you very much for your time, and it was very inspiring. And I will be making your website and other details available under this interview. So anyone who is interested for more like, you know, to understand about infographics that can be used in the therapy, or to understand more about the brain sex, or whatever the personal therapy sessions, Heather is available. So I will make sure all the contact details are mentioned below the YouTube description. Thank you very much, Heather.
Nizam, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure to. We've got to do this again, Nizam.
Yes.
We've got to chat more.
You caught my thoughts. I felt like this needs to have a sequel to discuss even more topics, so that people get to know more details. Like, this is very important, that you know, it is not generally available information. That's why this interview series, to help people to understand various concepts.
Well, my friend, it's been my friend and colleague, it has been a great pleasure. Great pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me along.
Thank you, Heather. Bye.
Thank you. God bless you, darling. Cheers.
Bye.